we're going to go here. Now, we need to go here because this is going to help us set up for the third angelic. So we have to establish this first. All right? You say, well, there's two. You laid out two. What is the third one? What is the third one? This one is the one that I didn't even know about until about 2017, 16. And I've taught the Bible for years and didn't know it. Although I saw it all over the Bible, especially the New Testament, but I was missing some key ingredients. Okay? You know, you try to come home and you try to replicate that thing you had at the restaurant, but you just don't have all the stuff that they had. And it's close. It's close. It resembles it, but you know it's missing something. Isn't that true? Right? Isn't that the way it was? Well, that's the way it was. We could see it. Daniel, very clearly. Paul's, in all of his letters, talking about these territorial powers, but we were missing something. So we went to first two and what happened because of those. Each one has an effect. All right? The divine council. I've had this picture forever. I think Dad even used this picture like a million years ago or something else, but it's a good picture. And it comes from the book of Revelation. All right? You probably can't see it well here, but there's, it has the living creatures, all right? Or we could say the cherubim, but, all right? And they all have different faces and they all look, it's wild, okay? And then, of course, you have the elders. And we don't exactly know who the elders are. Who are they? There's different groups. There's different groups. I think the Bible very clearly tells us who the elders are. All right? So I'm going to show you that there is a divine council. There's a lot of, this isn't, none of these are my phrases. I'm using one that there's a lot of better Bible teachers than me have used. Right? But these things aren't taught in regular churches, aren't taught, and so the people are ignorant. And you shouldn't be. All right? So, divine council also is really just a way to say the heavenly host. Which, in Old English, we all know that, right? The heavenly host. The host of heaven. Who are they? God has a family. Do you know his creation has a vast, there's different groups, different powers, different authorities. Get out of your mind the pagan, flying around, streets of gold and everyone playing a harp. Get rid of it. It's not biblical. Okay, there is an incredible creation and structure and we see all those glimpses in the Scripture. Right? Even this picture, coming from the book of Revelation, you have multiple different powerful divine beings that are vastly different. Right there in the picture. Okay? Okay. So we'll use the term divine council because it's important, but you could say, the heavenly host. Who are they? What's going on there? All right. And we're going to look at a bunch of passages. I'm going to prove to you first that this is all through the Bible. A lot of our English Bibles are watered down. You have to look at the original. Okay? So, we're going to come back to this word. Remember, I gave a little bit on it last night. The word Elohim. And its different variations. There's Elohim, Elion, and they're all different conjugations of El, the ancient Mesopotamian word for God. Okay? And yes, the Superman series and using the House of El was on purpose. Just a tidbit for you. Okay. This is Psalm 89. All right? Look what's here. Let the heavens praise your wonders, O Lord, your faithfulness in the assembly of the holy ones. There's an assembly of the holy ones? For who in the skies can be compared to Yahweh? Who among the heavenly beings is like Yahweh? a Elohim, greatly to be feared in the council of the holy ones, and awesome above all who are around him. Is there a council? Is there a divine assembly with the king and his servants and different groups, and one's in authority, that he's placed in authority, and one's not? Say, well, that shouldn't be weird. Why is it weird to us? Because we have gotten a watered-down version of the Bible. All right? That's why. Now, Elohim, that word, like I said, is used for many, many, many different things. And as Michael Heiser would say, is the best description. So I'll just use his because I couldn't come up with a better one myself. All right? Elohim is a place of residency in Hebrew. Beings from the divine world. Okay? Simply put. And it's used tons of different ways. It's used for false gods and idols and, demons and all different things, including, like I said last night, human spirits. Okay? So anyway, I think that's important. And, of course, depending on context, you have to understand what the word is and how it is and what it means. It can be singular because we're going to show you a passage later where it is. All right? Now, here's another one. I just want to prove to you that this is in the Bible. I mean, Psalm 89 is great in itself, but it's all over the place. All right? This is Job. Now, we're all very familiar with this story. Well, hopefully you are. Do you know what you see in Job in the simple reading? You don't have to look at the Hebrew. You see a council. You see a summoning of the king and his council and those he's put in authority to come before him and give an account. That's what you see. All right? Now there was a day when the B'nai Elohim or B'naha Elohim, right? The sons of God, never for humans, came to present themselves before the Lord. And the adversary also came among them. Now, there's different things. Some, even Michael Heiser will say here that the Satan here is not Satan, our Satan, because it's not a proper name. And he'll say this is just an adversary in the council who doesn't understand humans and is judging us wrongly. And the Lord is teaching him a lesson. I don't agree with that at all because I think Jesus, what he said to Peter, Satan has asked to sift you like wheat. I think this is the Satan. Now, why that's important is because Satan, we say Satan, it's Satan in Hebrew, is not a proper name, and it's used as an adversary, and sometimes it's even used as human adversaries. And of course, because in English, we don't read in Hebrew, we miss that. The word can be used just for an adversary, even a human adversarial king. Okay? So it means adversary. But there is one specific original adversary. All right? I think part of that is because he doesn't like, and some others don't like the fact that he was called into the council. They don't like that. All right? So that's why, and of course, because in the Hebrew grammar, you can make that case. You can make it. Like I said, I gave you the passage why I believe this is the Satan. All right? Anyway, either way, that's not important for the lesson I want to pull out of it today, which is there is a council. All right? And Satan also came among them. The Lord said to Satan, "From where have you come?" Satan answered the Lord and said, "From going to and fro on the earth and from walking up and down on it." That's also why I believe he was cast down to the eretz. Okay? Out of God's presence. He is not able to stay and be part of the council. He has been cast out. And the Lord said to Satan, have you considered my servant Job? And there is none like him on the earth, a blameless and upright man who fears God and turns away from evil. Then Satan answered the Lord and said, does Job fear God for nothing? Or for, I'm quoting NIV in my head because I've listened to it so many times. This is ESV. Does Job fear God for no reason? Have you put a hedge around him and his house and all that he has on every side? That's where the whole, Christianese, we say hedge of protection. That's where it comes from. It's fine prayer, right? There's nothing wrong with it. That's where it comes from. You have blessed the work of his hands, and his possessions have increased in the land. But stretch out your hand and touch all that he has, and he will curse you to your face. And the Lord said to Satan, behold. Now, again, there's so much doctrine here. All that he has is in your hand. Only against him do not stretch out your hand. So Satan went out from the presence of the Lord. Now, just on a simple thing in case. This is not having to do with the conference, but I cannot help myself. Because I've gone up against this, and some of you may have heard it, and you need to be spared from it. There's a lot of modern teaching in this camp that says God's not in control. There's a lot of different variations of it. And every single one of them, if you read their doctrine, they have to attack the book of Job. Why they have to do that is because they have to attack the doctrine right here of the book of Job. That he could only do what the Lord allowed him to do. That he was not completely independent, that the Lord is still sovereign. Amen. Okay? So they just say, oh, it's just a Jewish poem. It was a Jewish poetry. Some important lessons in it, but it's not theological. Bogus. And some even say Job shouldn't even be in the canon. And I've even heard one who's a reputable Bible teacher, and he has YouTube videos. Job isn't even mentioned. And I went, you've never read James? James, in the New Testament, mentions Job directly, and that all of his readers should be familiar with the story and is teaching them a lesson from it. And the lesson was, whenever you think it's bad, remember Job. And do we still use that? We should. Every Christian, we should all know that. When you think it's bad, remember Job and thank the Lord. Right? Also, Ezekiel. If Job was here before me. Okay? He's mentioned 2 different times. Has absolutely nothing to do with this seminar, but I could not help it. So there you go. Maybe some of you will get something out of that. Okay. What do we see here? A council. We see the Lord, right, teaching lessons to them. They're involved. And he hands authority here. Now, again, like I said, there is some really great scholars who will say that the Satan there is not the Satan as Jesus identified him, and the original rebel. I tend to think it is. Okay? But, I am not infallible. Okay? So I could be wrong on that one. I'll throw it at you. All right? So, here's another one. Psalm 29. Ascribe to the Lord, you heavenly beings. Ascribe to the Lord glory and strength. Ascribe to the Lord the glory due his name. Worship. And of course, if you look in Hebrew, what are you seeing there? There's Adonai, right? There's El. But sometimes, a lot of times, it's, when it's the articles there, it's Yahweh, the Tetragrammaton, the personal name. Okay? Worship the Lord in the splendor of his holiness. Job 38. I already read this one. You know what? So I had this one in there earlier, so there you go. But when the morning, I put it back in because it's part of the divine council. When the morning stars sang together and all the sons of God shouted for joy. You have the morning stars, the sons of God, okay? I told you I was going to be throwing a lot at you. Okay? Oh, this is, yeah, of course. Okay. Now, maybe I should just tell the story. I put it all in here, but it's long. If I tell it, it'll probably be faster. This is one of my favorite stories in the Bible. Again, it's one, if you have to teach it, you have to deal with the text. And most modern Christians will read this story and go, what did I just read? This is Micaiah or Micaiah, depending. How do you guys say it in Ireland? How do you say it? What did you say, Jim? Micaiah. Okay, I haven't heard that one. That's a new one for me. I've heard Micaiah or Micaiah. All of the above, because who knows? In Hebrew, it probably sounded like and who knows? Okay? But I'll say Micaiah. I'll just land on that one. But you know who I mean. All right? And Ahab and Jehoshaphat. Actually, I'll just tell the story because it'll be faster because it's like 7 frames on here. It's long. So, anyway, Jehoshaphat. Now, this was before the story I told about before with Ahab's son. This is Ahab. Ahab is being attacked, all right, by Syria and Ramoth Gilead, and he's looking for help. So he reaches out to the king of Judah, son of David, to help him. And Jehoshaphat has a good heart, and he reads the Torah, and he sees Israel, and Jehoshaphat, because he does it multiple times, clearly does not like the divided kingdom. He's broken over it. All right? And he knows it was his great-great-great-great-great-grandfather who did it. All right? Which he did. Solomon. All right? And so there's a whole nother lesson. Oh, I got to preach this one. I got to write this one down, darling. Jehoshaphat has a good heart, but is wrong. Good intentions don't always mean you're doing the right thing. That's the lesson of Jehoshaphat. Okay? So, anyway, Jehoshaphat says, yes, I'll come. My people are your people. My horses were one. And originally, they were. But the northern kingdom's in rebellion. Right? So, he comes down. He helps Ahab when he shouldn't have. And Ahab brings out all these prophets. And I know some people teach this like they were all prophets of Baal, but if you look at it, they're not. Because the guy who slaps Micaiah actually says, the Spirit of the Lord. Now you could say, well, I looked at it, because I want to say, is he just saying the Spirit of El or Adonai? Because many of them claim that that's who Baal was. That's what was going on with brain work. Elijah. All right? Elijah on Mount Carmel with the prophets of Baal and Yahweh. Who is the Almighty One? That was the point. You can't have two opinions. Who is the Almighty? All right? So, here, they're not all prophets of Baal. If you look at the text, I looked at it, it says Yahweh. All right? Some of them probably are. But they're all telling, and all the prophets are coming, and some of them are supposed. Now, you shouldn't be a prophet of the Lord and standing in Ahab's court, so you're clearly already compromised. You shouldn't be there. All right? Micaiah is faithful. That's why he's in prison. All right? So, anyway, what happens is they all come yelling and saying, attack Ramoth Gilead and the Lord will give you victory. And some are probably saying Baal, and some are, it's a mixture. It's a mixed bag. It's never good. And the Lord will give you victory, attack, and then one of them stands up and says, within 2 years or a year, bang, and but Jehoshaphat isn't impressed. Jehoshaphat is like, I'm not feeling it. Is there a prophet of Yahweh, like a real one? Because your guys aren't cutting it. He's used to real prophets, right, that he can trust, who hear from Yahweh. Is there not a prophet of Yahweh? We have to. The personal name brings out the story, because why do we have the Lord in our English translations? Because we went with the whole legalistic Judaism later on that would not say the name. We have to accept it. That's the reason. It's 6,500 times in the Old Testament, and the apostles would have used the name. We have to remember that. Okay? Anyway, that's another teaching, but an important one. But that's why I like to separate it, because the personal name matters to the story, so we get context. All right? So, a real prophet of Yahweh to come. And then Ahab goes, oh yeah, I got one. There is one. But I hate him. He only says bad stuff about me. He's a total jerk. I have him locked up. But fine, because he needs Jehoshaphat. Without him, he's done. We'll bring him out. And his guards try to grease the wheels a little bit. They bring out Micaiah and they say to him, all the other prophets have told the king to attack, that God is with him. Let your prophecy be the same as theirs. Go along with it. So, or things are going to get worse for you. It was a threat. And they meant it. Okay? So he comes out, and one of my favorite stories in the Bible, and on my audio Bible I've listened to for years. I love how the actor does it, because he gives this ridiculous sarcastic voice. And this is biblical sarcasm. You have to get it. That's what it is. Because Micaiah comes out and goes, oh yeah, king, attack Syria, and it'll be great, and you'll get victory. And it had to be sarcastic, because then Ahab goes, haven't I told you? Because he's trying to impress Jehoshaphat. Haven't I told you to only give me the truth in the name of Yahweh? Ahab's trying to puff himself up, look good in front of Jehoshaphat. So Jehoshaphat doesn't completely realize that Ahab is a total pagan, wicked man, right? He's putting on a face. And then Micaiah, see, I almost said Micaiah, I don't know, they're all different. Doesn't matter how you say it. And then you gave me a brand new one, Jim. All right, so he then says, fine, I'll tell you what I really saw. Now, why is he getting it? Now, so I can skip a bunch of frames and go here. Now, was that really faster than reading it? I don't know. Okay. Right here. And the king of Israel said to Jehoshaphat, did I not tell you that he would prophesy good concerning me, but evil? So Ahab's like, yeah, I told you. Look at this guy. No, I skipped. Let's go to the top. But the king said to him, how many times shall I make you swear that you speak to me nothing but the truth in the name of the Lord? And he said, I saw all Israel scattered on the mountains as sheep that have no shepherd. The guards threatening him didn't work. Ahab's like, he's blowing my whole plan. Scattered on the mountains as sheep that have no shepherd. And the Lord said, these have no master. Let each return to his home in peace. And the king of Israel said to Jehoshaphat, did I not tell you that he would not prophesy good concerning me, but evil? And Micaiah said, therefore hear the word of Yahweh. I saw the Lord sitting on his throne, and all the host of heaven standing beside him on his right hand and on his left. What? And the Lord said, now, this why I have to make sure we just get to this story, because you have to see the details here. Who will entice Ahab, that he may go up and fall at Ramoth Gilead? And one said one thing, and another said another. Then the Spirit came forward and stood before the Lord, saying, I will entice him. And the Lord said to him, by what means? And he said, I will go out and be a lying spirit in the mouth of all of his prophets. And he said, you are to entice him, and you shall succeed. Go and do so. Now therefore, behold, the Lord has put a lying spirit in the mouth of all of your prophets. The Lord has declared disaster from you. And then I skipped the last part. He says, oh, and by the way, you're not coming back. Which was great. And he didn't. Okay, his word all came true. But do we see a council here? Not just a council. The Lord actually asking them. What are you going to do? What's your plan? All right? He's sitting down with his sons, and he's going, okay, this is what I want. What do you think we should do? Now, does the Lord need them? This is really important. Does he need them? Some of you are not sure. Does the Lord need them? Does the Lord need me? Does the Lord need you? Did he need Moses? That's a really important story, because the answer to that one is no. It's in the text. The Lord almost took him out, right? He wants you. He doesn't need you. He wants you. But that is also true of his heavenly family. He doesn't need them. He's loving. He's a father. He wants them involved. They're part of his team. Do you think he didn't already have a plan that he wanted something to do? Why is he sitting there saying, what do you think? What do you think? He wants them involved. And one comes, and then of course, then we're like theological breaker, like, oh, lying spirit. Well, God didn't lie, but he sent the Spirit. All right? Now, this is a son of God here who goes in as a spirit. So he can spiritually affect them. Very important. Under the power of the Lord. Through his power. See, the Lord doesn't need anything to pierce the veil. He's almighty. Okay? He doesn't need it. His authority, the Lord can do what he wants. He is sovereign. All right? The fallen ones have to operate outside of his authority, and they have to break all the rules. Does everybody understand that? Okay. So, anyway, this story, again, he's sitting there, and he has a family and people who are on his, beings that are on his team that he created, and he wants them involved. And he said, this is what I've decreed. This is it. How do you guys think we should do it? Now, am I abusing this story, or is it what it says? How many sermons do you hear on this? How many? Because no one wants to touch it with a 10-foot pole, that's why. There's another one of those that I couldn't let go. I had to teach it every year, so I had to come up with an answer. I had to explain it. And when you have to explain it, you're like, oh, man. And then what happens in the beginning, it happened to me for years. I would try to explain it the best I could. I'd look up some things, and then I'd be like, it doesn't feel right. I didn't nail that one. You go home, and you're sitting there. I'm sitting in bed. I'm going, that answer. Rachel asked me that question, and it was just, I don't think my answer was that good. I got to really come up. I need a better answer here. Didn't work. Kyle, you ever felt that way? What does it lead you to do? Dig and get the right answer. It's great, actually. All right? So, this is another one. I had to explain this, when I'm 26, 27 years old, and I'm like, nobody teaches that. I don't know. Divine counsel, God's family. He talks to them. They're a part of his team. He gives them tasks. Malak, messenger. He gives them messages. He gives them jobs. That's important. Okay. Here's another one. This is Paul speaking, New Testament. Let the elders who rule well be considered worthy of double honor, especially those who labor in preaching and teaching. For the scripture says, you shall not muzzle an ox while it treads out the grain, and the laborer deserves his wages. Do not admit a charge against an elder except on evidence of 2 or 3 witnesses. As for you who persist in sin, rebuke them in the presence of all, so that the rest may stand in fear. In the presence of God and of Christ Jesus and how many sermons have you heard on that? The elect angels. Jesus says something similar as well in Matthew 25. Well, he will set up his throne, and he has his elect ones. I believe they're the elders. Okay? And we know two of them specifically. Two of them are definitely Michael and Gabriel, but they have different jobs. They have different tasks. We're going to see that later. Okay? So, anyway, but right here, Paul's making a point. And I think the reason also I left this part in about the elders and about, those in service, I think that's what then he puts in the elect angels here. He doesn't do it every time he mentions this. He does it here, I think, because it backs up his point in the spiritual and as we here on earth. I think that's his point here. But anyway, there's probably a lot deeper to it as well. But simply put, Paul, what is he mentioning and telling Timothy? The elect angels. There's elect angels. It's not all the angels. There's not all the divine beings. But there is a council that are loyal to him, that do his bidding. Okay. I'm done with that.